Hari Om friends, and welcome to the 11th part of the series on the Karnataka Empire, popularly known as the Vijayanagara Empire. So in this part we will look at the turmoil in Delhi following Ala-ud-din's death. So let's crack on and we will move on to the next slide. Now, let's get Ala-ud-din on the screen first. There we go. So 1316 was a very problematic year for the Khiljis. So years of debauchery and warfare caught up with Alauddin, and he was pretty much on his last legs, completely bedridden. Now, depending on the historian you read, he could have been suffering either from dropsy, which is a very painful disease where essentially your body wastes away, or from a sexually transmitted disease or an STD. So Farishta, the Ahmednagar historian, he says that Alauddin Khilji had an STD. Now, what had happened was, because of his illness, Alauddin could not even move out of his room. Forget about going to the court or even on the battleground. So this led to two opposing camps forming in his court. One of the camp was led by his wife, Mahru, who had the title Malika-e-Jahan, and her brother Alp Khan, who was the governor of Gujarat, and he had quite a sizable army under his control. The opposing camp was led by Malik Kafur, Alauddin Khilji's gay lover. Kafur eventually got the upper hand and he got both the queen and her son Khizr Khan, who was next in line to become the Sultan, and he was Alauddin Khilji's favorite as well. So he got them jailed in Gwalior fort. What he also did was to prevent Alp Khan from joining them or trying to free them. He got Alp Khan murdered. Now, this had an unintended consequence because in Gujarat, the troops who were Muslim troops who were loyal to Alp Khan, they all revolted and Gujarat went out of the Sultan's control. Kafur probably poisoned Alauddin, who popped off on 6th Jan 1316. Now, what followed afterward was the typical, extremely bloody succession struggle, which was very typical of the Delhi Sultanate. Let me bring up on the screen the names of the four main sons of Alauddin, because they are quite key to what I'm going to say in the next few paragraphs. Okay, there we go. So Khizr Khan, Shadi Khan, Mubarak Khan, and Shihabuddin Umar. Okay, so four sons. Kafur did was he got the older sons, Khizr Khan and Shadi Khan, blinded. Now they were still prisoners in Gwalior fort. And he proclaimed Alauddin's infant son, who was Shihabuddin Umar, as the Sultan. Mubarak Khilji, who was an adult as well. So Shihabuddin was around 6 years old at this time. Obviously he was just a puppet in the hands of Kafur. So Mubarak Khilji, who was an adult, was thrown into prison, and it was expected he would meet the same fate. But here's where, destiny took an interesting turn. Mubarak Khan bribed the assassins who were sent to kill him by Kafur, and he got the assassins to turn back and kill Kafur, by treachery in cold blood. And what these assassins did was they quickly proclaimed Mubarak as the next Sultan. So he took the title Qutubuddin Mubarak Khilji. Typical again of Delhi Sultanate and all Muslim kingdoms, empires all over the world. Mubarak promptly got rid of all of his brothers. So, that's kind of a fanciful reconstruction of Kafur. So there goes Kafur, and Mubarak becomes the Sultan. And he got rid of Khizr Khan, Shadi Khan, and Shihabuddin Umar. So he got all of them killed. As a bonus, he also grabbed Deval Devi, who was Khizr Khan's wife. Now, Deval Devi, if you remember, was the daughter of Karan Dev Waghela, who was the last Hindu ruler of Gujarat. So she was kidnapped by Alauddin Khilji when she was quite a little girl. And she was married off to Khizr Khan. And Mubarak was typically a complete debauch like his father. And he would fit in all the LGBTQ categories today. So he was a bisexual, a gay, he had a fetish for cross-dressing, and he did a lot of things, which I'm not going to mention in this video. And like his father, he had a quite fondness for young boys as well. But while, Delhi was in turmoil, interesting things were happening at Devagiri, because due to the turmoil at Delhi, what Kafur did was he recalled the governor of Devagiri, Mulk, to Delhi with his troops to help him. But Kafur was assassinated while Mulk was on the way. So, for a period of time, Devagiri and the erstwhile Yadava kingdom, all the cities and the main forts were completely devoid of Muslim garrisons, or the forces were very weak. And this led to a big revolt by one of the surviving members of Yadava royal line. And we'll have a look at that in the next slide. So let's move on. Like I said, Enul Mulk, the governor of Devgiri, departed for Delhi to try and assist Kafur. As soon as the Muslim garrisons were thinned out, revolt was launched in Devgiri by the courageous Haripala Deva. Now, it is not very clear who Haripala Deva was. Some sources say he was the son-in-law of the late Ramaraya of Devgiri. But he seems to be one of the princes of Yadava royal line. So the situation for Hindus had become very intolerable, and typically all the atrocities were done by the Muslims. So the women abducted in broad daylight, peasantry taxed to death, random massacres and killings, general brutalization, destruction of crops, and so on. So all of this was going on. Now, Haripala Deva was joined in his efforts by Raghava, a minister of Ramaraya, and for a brief period under the kingship of Haripala Deva, Devgiri regained its independence, and he succeeded in defeating every Muslim Amir in that region and even those who were sent against him, to the extent that in 1318, Mubarak Khilji had to lead an army from Delhi to recapture Devgiri. And in this map which I have done, so this was one of my ongoing map projects many years back. You can see Devgiri, which I have highlighted with kind of a symbol, and there's the symbol of the crosswords indicating the battle which took place over there. So this map project I kind of stalled almost 13 years back. So I'm going to revive this because my idea was to have copyright free maps of India which could be used for historical, for any use pretty much. And some of my maps of Vijayanagar which are out there are being used by a lot of people, typically without any kind of acknowledgement. Once Mubarak Khilji came with the bulk of his forces to the Deccan, entering Maharashtra, they had to fight a very tough fight with Haripala Deva and Raghava. But Raghava was defeated by Khusro. Now, who was Khusro? He's a very interesting character. Khusro was the gay lover of Mubarak Khilji. So Khusro didn't have a choice. Again, like Malik Kafur, he was a Hindu who was captured and then converted to Islam, and because he was capable as well, and plus he had the affections of Qutbuddin Mubarak. So he was very quickly promoted up the line. Now Raghava was defeated by Khusro and his army was completely destroyed. But Haripala Deva defeated Khusro twice. So he was quite an able commander. And he made very good use of the mountainous terrain of the Deccan, which the Marathas did, almost 300 years later. And he gave the Muslims a very tough time. But Muslim forces were overwhelming because, they were lakhs, so hundreds of thousands. And he was finally cornered in Devagiri fort to surrender on the condition that Mubarak Khilji would spare his life. But typically, the Muslim sultans had no intention of keeping their promise. So on surrendering, this courageous lion, he met a very gruesome end. So he was tortured, he was skinned alive, and his corpse was stuffed with straw, which was a very brutal practice of those days, especially among the Muslim kingdoms. And then his dead body was hung from the gates of Devgiri. The entire royal family of the Yadavas was massacred by Mubarak Khilji to prevent any further uprising. Malik Yar Lakhi was made the governor of Delhi, and the military garrisons were posted at key forts such as Sagar, Gulbarga, and other places. And for the next, 3 centuries, life of Hindus in the Deccan slipped into a dark age, because while the Muslim sultans or the Deccan sultans had complete control over the cities, the countryside was in the hands of, small Hindu chiefs who were subservient to the Muslim sultans. So every time a small chief kind of went out of line, the sultans would use the others and their own armies to stamp him out. So this is all for this time, and in the next episode we will look at the situation in the south during 1318, 1320, typically in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, and the little bit of present day Telangana and Andhra Pradesh as well. So friends, if you have liked this video, please do remember to share, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Hari Om.